Thousands of Iranian opposition supporters have ignored threats from the government and taken to the streets of the capital, Tehran. Iranian TV says there have been reports of shots fired at the scene of the demonstrations. It's the third day of unrest since last week's election result, in which hardline President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was declared the winner, despite a huge surge in support for a reforming candidate. Our World Affairs editor, John Simpson, is in the capital. He reports now from a country at the heart of a troubled region.
Today was an important milestone in this extraordinary crisis, the moment the government backed away from confrontation. This was the size of the crowd at Enqilab Square. People had turned out in numbers like these, even though they had been warned it was illegal and that there might even be shooting. But it was simply too big to be stopped.
We are here just for saying we no to the Ahmadinejad. We already, all of them, all of us, we said yes to Mir Hossein Mousavi Friday night.
Mr. Mousavi himself had kept his head down since Friday night. Now he appeared before the crowd. Our people want respect, he says, and they want their votes to be counted. From here, the demonstration moved on to Azadi Square. It's the same story. Vast crowds, intense passion, and nothing to stop it all.
This has been the most remarkable event. A lot of people thought there was going to be bloodshed, that the crowds would be stopped by the police, that guns might be used. Not a bit of it. You scarcely see any policemen at all. It's just a crowd. No speakers, no organisation, but a great deal of feeling.
Death to the dictator, they're chanting. And on Iranian television, the most surprising U-turn of all. The newsreader announces that the country's religious leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has ordered an investigation into the allegations of vote rigging.
For the first time ever, will release the results of the presidential election in detail.
At Tehran University, one of the main centres of protest now, as it always has been, the students are staging a sit-in. No one can say where the crisis will go from here, but if the government has decided to let the protesters have their say, that could change a lot of things. John Simpson, BBC News, Tehran.
In the days since the contested election result was announced, there have been reports of opposition members being arrested, newspapers being censored or banned, and internet sites being blocked. So was the election rigged, and who are the protesters out on the street? Our diplomatic correspondent, Bridget Kendall, is here. Bridget.
Thank you, George. Well, Iran may feel a long way away from us, but it's a major country in a fragile region lodged between Iraq and Afghanistan. And though Tehran denies it, many fear it's intent on developing nuclear weapons. So how the current turmoil turns out matters to all of us. At first, it seemed as though President Ahmadinejad was bound to win, helped by being in power already and supported by Iran's ruling conservative clerics. But then the campaign got going and lifted the lid on pent-up anger. A dramatic show of popular support for the main opposition candidate, which is proving hard to deal with. It was the election results declared by the government which led to the current crisis, the 63% majority for President Ahmadinejad against only 33% for his main rival. It felt to the opposition like a betrayal. Protest rallies prompted a brutal police crackdown and a clampdown on communications.
I think the most striking thing, though, is that the events of recent days, the blocking of SMS messages, the closing down of television stations, the cancellation of rallies, are in stark contrast to the openness, relatively speaking, of the election campaign itself.
So who are the protesters? Well, many of those on the streets have been students, young and well-educated, but also women seeking a relaxation of Iran's strict dress code and some senior political figures opposed to Ahmadinejad. How many they are outside the capital is harder to calculate. What is clear is that internet blogs, texting and services like Twitter have given them new ways to link up and challenge the authorities. Iran's top authority is not the president, but the spiritual leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. He's agreed an inquiry into the results, but he's also already congratulated Ahmadinejad. So the key question is what he'll do if opposition defiance continues.
The security services have many means to keep dissent under control. They are using some of them as a certain amount of brutality, but it is possible that these disturbances will escalate, and I think the Iranian authorities are nervous about that happening.
And Ayatollah Khamenei will no doubt be remembering that it was student protests in 1979 that brought down the Shah and ushered in an Islamic revolution. Hard to imagine that happening again, George, but it's a volatile situation.
Bridget, thank you. The family of a woman with swine flu who died at a hospital in Scotland have said they're devastated. Jacqueline Fleming